everyone. Welcome to Big Thoughts, Small Business, the show that's all about empowering entrepreneurs and service based businesses to thrive in the dynamic world of business. I'm your host, Aisha Dorn, and I'm absolutely thrilled to be introducing our co host, Libby Kavoulakis. Say hey, Libby.
Hey, Aisha.
How are you doing this week?
Really well. It was a
All
good
right.
week for business this week.
Yes, every week is a good week for business. And I feel like since we're starting off our content, our podcast about starting, a lot of our content has been about starting business and stuff. And next week we're going to go live and we're going to talk about the movie The Founder, which is based on the McDonald's origin story. And I think that movie has so much small business life lessons chalked into it. We're going to have a really good time discussing it. But today we're going to talk about stop waiting and take action on your idea. Important things that we're going to be talking about in this podcast is, why aren't you doing it? Are you ready to take action? Who's your target? And also, is there a reason or is there no reason to not take the risk if everything is in place? All right, Libby, we're going to jump right into it. Let's get to that question number one. Why aren't most people taking action on their idea, whether it's small business or a new service line, product line? What do you think some of the top four reasons are?
I think one of the biggest things is fear.
Mm.
As small business owners, we carry a lot of risk and we carry a lot of responsibility. So if you're out there and you have a payroll to meet, or if you're supporting your family, taking a risk is a big deal. So, yep, we all know that.
Oh, yeah.
And then the other one is just confidence. That's partially feeds into the fear,
Mm.
thinking that you're not ready yet, or that you haven't done it before. So why should you do it now? Who's going to believe you can do whatever you want your idea to be?
Mm.
And then just sometimes it's just not the money to execute.
Yeah.
You need to buy inventory, you need to buy equipment, you need to travel, whatever the money may be. You just may not have all the funding in place quite yet.
Mm.
And then the other reason people don't do things, prioritization of time.
Mm.
Everything else is more important. I've got to answer these emails. I have to write this proposal. I have to go, to this meeting, whatever. And all of a sudden the day is over and you're wiped out. So that's the last bit of energy you had to give to your new idea and execute. But I would say, like, most importantly, it's either fear and lack of confidence or time that really makes people stop.
Yeah. And I like that you listed those four things because I feel like fear, time, and confidence, those are all kind of like internal factors that we all kind of struggle with. Funding is like one of the biggest things that small business or just people in general, we are still recovering from a global pandemic, and I don't want to say normal, but I'll say traditional lines of the flow of money, let's say the cash flow, has severely changed throughout every market. Like, there isn't a market that wasn't altered dramatically because we had about, I want to say, 3 months of actual downtime where we weren't leaving the house. And then for the remainder of that year, we're trying to figure out how we can still adjust. There was a lot of government funding, but I do feel like like all four of these I'm struggling with. As a small business owner, it comes in different times. So like when we were completing this Goldman Sachs small business program and we had to do the pitch at the end, oh, it was traumatic almost. It was like a lot of fear expressing or pitching in the correct way that made you look like a professional, but confidently expressing a need, I would say, is really hard for a lot of small business owners, especially like myself. I have this fear almost of asking for certain kinds of help. Like, I'm supposed to be an expert in this field, but I need, additional workforce for this project. And maybe that's not so much of a fear, but just you always have that intimidation factor of, if I ask for help, will I look like lesser of a business or lesser of a business owner? But like you said, if you build up your confidence, your services to a T, that should really eliminate fear. Because I feel like a lot of times fear is just not knowing. So if you take the time to sit down and get to know what your fear is, how you can, bolster that up, it'll
It's
all be
also what's quite interesting too is as a small business owner, your business is so closely associated with you and your personality.
yeah.
And sometimes, even as a solopreneur, the line is indistinguishable.
Yes.
So the fear comes not just on the business side, but on your personal life,
Mm-hmm.
because your business relationships may also be friends,
Mm-hmm.
or again, you may be supporting your family with your business. So there's real impact if something goes wrong.
Yeah.
Your family is now going to be put in jeopardy or put in harm's way or whatever it may, or maybe inconvenienced.
Yeah. Yeah.
Might be a nice, yeah,
Because that
it can
sounded
also cause
dire.
anything. I know. If you fail
That
in
was
business, you must
major.
die.
But it
Jeez,
feels
I
like
did
that.
make that horrible. Take that out.
But it feels like that. That's a real palpable fear for a lot of business owners is, if they don't keep that large contract or that large client who's, it's a minuscule service to the client, but to you, it's supporting a lot of your cash flow needs at the moment. So yeah, sometimes you drop a client or a client, no longer is a good fit and it changes your structure and you got to pivot. That's always, fearful. But the time, yeah, I would say a lot of an entrepreneur's journey is timing. Are you rushing to market? Are you first to market? Are you capitalizing on that idea quick enough? Because you have situations where you're networking with people and they're like, oh yeah, I need that. Send me an email or give me your card. And then there's that weird little dip where, okay, I called and it was right after, or, it's been a week, I followed up. And it just seems like sometimes it flatlines and that
Yeah.
timing is missed or things like that. But that goes nicely into our next question. Are you ready to take action? What do you think the biggest components of taking an idea to execution, or what is involved in taking action for your small business?
So there's a couple backstories behind this before you're ready to actually go to market, and that's having done the market research to make sure there is a market for your service.
Mm-hmm.
If we assume that there is a market for your service or your good,
Mm-hmm.
um, there was a framework that I was taught early in my consulting career: strategy, structure, people, process, technology.
Hmm.
Almost like the elements of production,
Yeah.
right? Land, labor, capital, coordination. Who learned that in economics?
Mhm. Oh, economics. That was a fun class. That and
Yeah,
statistics. Did you take statistics? I know you took
I
statistics.
took
I
statistics.
like
I didn't
statistics, but it was like whole new world.
Yeah, I like statistics on how I use them now, but I don't like how I had to learn them in school, right?
Yeah.
In high school and college, I didn't like that kind of statistics.
No. It was that
Anyway,
broad everything at once, and you're like, oh my gosh.
yeah, the real world application is much easier and much
Right.
more fun.
Mhm.
But if you're ready to take action, figure out who your customer is,
Mhm.
what market you're serving, the whole strategy behind what you're doing, having it all laid out, what you want to accomplish with it, who you're serving with it, the timing of it, everything. And then the structure.
Mhm.
Do you have the people? Do you have the organization? Do you have everything you need in place to make sure that you're able to execute?
Mhm.
People, obviously.
Yeah.
Do you have the people in place? Or
Mhm.
do you know people who you can tap into to help execute? And then process. It's not good if you can't replicate it.
Yeah.
And one-off deals aren't really going
Sustain.
to make or break a market for you, right? So
Right.
have processes in place for efficiency as well as replicability.
Mhm.
And then technology, what can you do better with technology? Do you have the technology in place? And what do you need? Is it just a smartphone? Is it a computer network? Is it, a robot? I don't know, a drone?
Mhm.
What do you need? Just email perhaps, or
Yeah.
just a laptop with Word on it.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be complex. It can be very simple, but you make sure all these different elements are in place, and that really gives you a foundation to be ready to take action.
Mm.
Then again, going back to the mental, Everything always comes back to the owner's mindset.
Oh yeah.
Are you ready to take action? If you can't answer yes to that,
Mhm.
you have to figure out why you're answering no. Like,
Mm,
what is holding you back?
yeah,
Yeah. And
that's
that's a big
important.
question. That's not an easy one to answer.
No, you can't just throw that kind of question out on a Tuesday. That's one of those Sunday morning meet your maker kind of questions.
I know. That's one of those questions like, what's holding me back? You probably list 50 things, without even trying. I probably sit here and write
Yeah.
down a bunch of different things. And then by the time I read them all out, say, no, that's not true. No,
Yeah.
like, maybe that one's true. Then I
Mhm.
have to sleep on it, right? Like, what's holding me back? Sleep on it. I'll give you the answer.
That is important because everything can kind of take on a new light with fresh eyes,
Hmm.
whether they're your fresh eyes or somebody else's. But I find that when I'm in the throes of a really kind of pivotal decision, and it's like you said, it's your mental state. Sometimes we zero in on these ideas and they become so big and then so small. And then, our feelings about them go from, oh, this is going to be great to, oh, who do I think I am trying to, accomplish like something like that. And one of my favorite quotes is, if your dreams aren't big enough, wait, if your dreams don't terrify you, they're not big enough.
Not big enough. Yeah.
And that kind of frames your perspective on, yes, I should be shooting for the moon. If I land on a cloud, that's still good. It's progress. It's getting to the next level, by any means, just making sure that you're always progressing. And I was on TikTok and it was funny because, you're just swiping. Oh, that's interesting. Like, oh, that's it. Oh, what did they say in the comments? And there's this one, it was so pivotal, like just kind of came out of nowhere. The girl said, I was in an interview and they asked me, who or what kind of person would you be if you weren't interrupted?
Mm.
Let that sit on your ears for a little bit. Who would you be if you weren't interrupted? And then she said, and after a couple of minutes, she thought about it and she said, that made me ask the even bigger question: what do I want to do? And it's like those kind of questions you need to ask yourself. Those, like you said, get to the root of why you're afraid of something, get to the root of why you're not just taking action, because that hesitation is just going to keep coming back up. And there's things that I hesitate on, and I'll look at my husband, he's also my business partner, and I'll say, I got to talk to him about it. I know, we have to discuss this, the whole eat the frog approach, just get it out the way, just go into it. And there'll be things that I'll just be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this. And he'll be like, no, that's good. It's progress. And I'm like, well, okay then. Well, let's keep it moving. And then he'll come to me with stuff and like, oh man, what are we doing? I'm like, we're doing this, and then we have to do this. And then once that's done, we do this. And he goes, oh, okay. And just being able to just track it back, because everything becomes really big in your head when you just focus on it for hours. So I like the idea of making a list, and it's got to be a very clear and poignant list. If it's too broad, it's just not going to get done. But my lists usually go as poignant as I can. And one of the funner lists that I've done is, why should people pay me for this service? And I try to list anything and everything. And I got to like 100. And I thought I was going to stop at like 10. I'm like, oh, people should pay me because I offer a great service. Oh, people should pay me because, I'm doing, good work. But once you start writing, you're like, just put anything on that list. And
Right.
after you get past 50, you're like, oh, well, people should pay me because I'm worth it. It builds your confidence. It builds that inner voice in your head to say, wait a minute, I know a lot of stuff. People should pay me because I'm a competent person in this field. People should pay me because I have X amount of years of experience. People should pay me because I have, this kind of level of employees that I make sure are taken care, and you just keep going. And that's important, I think, for most business owners to just have that space where you go into and it's just confidence, because there's so many other spaces we go into where it's like, no, chip, 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 it just chips away at your whole identity or your idea of your business. But if you can just create a space where it's just go time, like I'm doing this because I'm that person and I recognize that person and that person's me, I think that helps as well. Like that's my little trick. But
I
do you have any
recommended
tricks?
a No, I recommended a very similar exercise to a client of mine who keeps getting beaten down and is starting to lose some confidence in herself.
Mm-hmm.
So the exercise was anytime there's negative self-talk,
Mm-hmm.
write down the negative statement and then underneath it, reframe it as a positive statement. And then
That's good.
keep riffing on that positive statement. For instance, I'm not, I made this horrible math mistake. I'm so stupid.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, if you tell that to yourself, you're going to eventually believe it.
Yeah.
And it's not true. It's a mistake. You didn't do it
Mm-hmm.
on purpose. Get
Yeah.
over it.
Mm-hmm.
But to tell yourself that, it doesn't work with most people.
Yeah.
If you train your brain, it will work for you.
Mm-hmm.
But for right now, it doesn't. So write down the negative statement and say, I did, now turn it positive. I did my best and gave a great answer despite the math mistake. Or
Yes.
I learned to check my work 3 times now
Yeah.
because I made a mistake.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to focus on being detail oriented. And you keep evolving it
Mm-hmm.
to getting to the point where I'm proud of myself that I caught the mistake. I'm
Yes.
proud of myself that I know how to do math. I am excited that I have the ability to do math
Mm-hmm.
and provide answers to people. And you
Yes.
keep going, you keep taking it out as far as you can until you start believing the positive self-talk.
Yes.
Because what happens is your conscious mind and your subconscious mind does not know the difference.
No.
The subconscious does not know the difference between negative self-talk and fact.
Yeah.
Whatever goes into it unfiltered.
Yes.
There's no differentiator. On the conscious level, we know the difference if it's true or not true.
Mm-hmm.
On the subconscious, and that's what kind of sucks our excitement out. It kind of
Yeah.
takes away our confidence. It adds fear because we've built all these bad statements into our subconscious.
Yeah.
So,
Very
yeah.
true. I like that because it just reaffirms that businesses are people. Businesses aren't
Mhm.
these, geometric things that just, bump into things and get money somehow. Like it's not a video game. This is people. I'm doing business with you because you connect with me in a way where it works. And then I see results. And that's where I feel like a lot of business interactions should kind of start. We shouldn't be fighting to talk to a wall. If it's a corporation and they operate like this and they're just grinding along, they don't notice you, you're just a number. You got to consider that when interacting. And, if you're the type of person that says, look, I want more engagement from my clients, you should find clients that are happy to engage with you because your energy needs to be poured into something. It just can't go out into the world and evaporate off you because you're deteriorating at that point. But if you're, watering a plant, that plant's getting that water and you see the results and you feel the additional results of the plant growing bigger and, converting more carbon. I'm rambling. But there's a purpose to pouring into things and seeing a result that also benefits you. And I think, when we talk about starting a small business and starting with purpose, starting with why, that's one of the books that I'm reading. Why'd you start your business in the first place? And how some of these business concepts turn into actionable items. So, like that list or that activity you had your client do, I hear a lot of process in that. If you made a mistake on some numbers in your estimate, now your process is I check my work twice and then I give it to a red line team, or, I make sure that I communicate it out loud and see if it sounds right. Those are processes that go into companies and become, how you and your workers do things. So everything that you produce, and that's why I think also having the conversation about your intellectual property as a business owner is important because everything you pour into your business is valuable, So if you start with understanding that everything you're creating here is of value to your business and your customers, it builds that confidence too. You get to look and say, oh, trademark, this strategy, it could be something that seems so basic to you, but to somebody that doesn't know it, they're like, wow, I really used that. That made a lot of sense because I think businesses are becoming more holistic since we're all working out of our living rooms now. We're all, just trying to wake up and take two steps and go to work. We have to start talking about, the mental aspects of being a business owner. And so that doesn't take us into our next question, but
Well, let me
I,
go back on something here
sure.
too. I want to make sure we don't tell people that exercise is for processes,
Oh, okay.
because it's really supposed to be free thinking to get you
Mm,
to think positively.
gotcha.
So they shouldn't use that as processes because it's going to add too many different
Layers.
divergent thoughts
Okay.
together. If they want to do a process, I have exercises for those too.
Okay. That's where we
Um,
need to go.
yeah.
And
The
you
other
could
thing,
talk about that. How does process differ from the, what do you call it? The kind
free
of confidence
thinking,
building. Yeah, the free thinking.
confidence building.
Yeah.
Well, process is very tactical,
Mm.
right? Like I always, so when I was writing government proposals, we always had to write a technical approach.
Yes.
And it was a lot. It wasn't just a couple pages. These are 100-page documents.
Yes.
And you're laying out
Exhausting.
every step you'll take and what the deliverable will be, what the outcome should be, what type of outcome you're seeking, not what the outcome will be, but what,
Mm-hmm.
what you're seeking.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then any dependencies, like do you need the government to provide this? You need a outside entity to do this, whatever
Mm-hmm.
it may be. And I finally got sick of it. And I'm
What
like,
part
this,
were you sick of?
I was sick of the whole thing, actually.
It's a lot of work. It's a lot of pages.
It's a lot of pages over and over again.
Yeah.
And then if you don't win, they have all your free intellectual property. They have
That
all your
part.
free ideas that they then use.
Like, oh,
Because
this is
then some of
nice.
my proposals and some of their future statements of
RFPs.
work.
Yeah. Ooh,
Phew,
that would make me
I should have
sick.
charged them for that.
Yeah,
Anyway,
somehow.
but the point being that I finally decided that I can boil anything down to 5 key steps.
That's talent.
And yeah, I was very, I mean, this was an epiphany one day.
Mm-hmm.
5 key steps. And there may be some sub steps in it,
Mm-hmm.
but if it took more than 5, maybe 6, whatever, but it wasn't going to be 10.
No.
What are the most important things to do in every single thing? And you start from that and you're like, huh, it's not that complex. I can
No.
tick things off pretty quickly. And it really shows A, you know what you're doing, B, you have the controls in place,
Mhm.
and C, kind of a timeline for doing it.
Yeah.
So you think about that. Yeah, 5 steps, easy peasy, right?
Mhm.
No one's going to get overwhelmed with 5 checkoff items.
No, that's not even a half a page, in some cases. And there's a song about it.
Is there?
4 5 steps.
Oh, I didn't
I'll
know
send it
that.
to you. It's by Drew Hill. It's Cisco. It's about, them breaking up or whatever. But basically the chorus is we have 5 steps. So I'm gonna play the little
Yeah,
soundbite. That'll be fun.
yeah. So I kind of keep that in the back of my mind too. If you can't, and different topic,
Yeah.
but you know how when you meet people and they
Mhm.
sound really smart, but they can't tell you what they do for a
Oh, I
living,
hate that.
how they're posers,
Yeah.
right?
You're
Complete
saying a lot
posers.
of words to me, but there is no action word in there. Just a lot of adjectives.
And what does that mean to me?
Yeah.
Look, I remember all these. I was reverse engineering financial systems. It's like, okay, what's that mean?
Yeah.
What do you do? Like,
Or do you
what's
want
in
me
it
to
for
know?
me?
That's the other thing. Like, do I have
Yeah, but they're
experience
like
to know?
trendy word of the moment, right? Or it
Yes.
was trendy.
Mhm.
Reverse engineering everything was
Yeah.
trendy for a while.
Now it's
Um,
coaching and strategic it's it's between coaching and strategic coaching. Like not, I'm not knocking coaches. There are some really good ones out there, but there's a lot of people that are selling information versus selling how to do something,
yeah.
and it's under this broad term of coach. And it's like, well, what do you consider coaching? Oh, I just tell you a lot of stuff. And it's like, well, what are the action steps from it? And it's like, oh no, that's not my responsibility. You have to do the work. Doing the work isn't me making up how to, serve myself as a client. That's not why I signed on at all.
Well, the other part of that too is that has nothing to do with coaching.
Mm.
And that's why I used to make fun of people in Washington D.C. because a lot of retired military, a lot of retired federal
Mhm.
employees who all of a sudden are consultants.
Yes,
So
consultant
they get
coaching
business cards
strategist.
like, what do you consult on? Oh, well, I just retired from XYZ agency and I have a
Mhm.
lot of friends there. Well, what do you do?
Yeah.
Well, they gave me a contract, blah, blah, blah. What do you do? And but they walk around like acting like it's quite funny because when you drill down one or two levels, they're
Yes.
not consultants. They have no consulting background,
Nope.
incapable of forming a consulting conclusion or consulting process or
Yes.
writing, providing those services. But they're consultants only that they talk to someone in an agency they used to work at.
Yeah.
So
And
they
there
went to
should be a
coffee
name
with
for
your
that.
buddy. Yeah, it's
What is
called
the
thrift.
name for that? Like it's a little bit above referral because I feel like they just know somebody and they'll connect you. Like if that was a name, I would call a lot of these, consultants out here that. Like you're not really a consultant. You're just somebody who knows a guy.
You know a guy.
I
Be
know a
like, I
guy.
know a guy too. I can get cheap tires.
Yeah, I can get your windows done. What do you need? It's just it's I get it because the atmosphere since COVID has shaken a lot of our systems up, and we're seeing breaks in some systems. We're seeing complete end of industries and others. And then we're seeing, I don't want to say a rise of the scammers, but just the opportunists that are saying, okay, there are people looking for this, and I know how to get those people and draw them in with a few of the things that they're looking for, and I can make my money in that kind of exchange of you're looking for this. Hey, I'm the person that has it. Sign up with me because I can consult. I can talk
Well,
to
those are
you.
one yeah, those are one-trick ponies, they
Yeah.
make that one introduction, that's all they're capable of,
Yeah.
and that introduction does not mean you'll get the work,
Yeah.
and
And
that's where, coaches, consultants, trainers,
mm,
teachers,
very broad
mentors,
terms.
all of those terms have been commingled to the point of being,
Homogenous.
lesser.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they've all been diluted,
Yeah.
and, it's interesting, I coach, but I consult because I try to help the client solve the problem.
Hmm.
And I use coaching as a tool to do that.
Yes.
I use my consulting background as a tool to do that. You
Hmm.
know, you they're all just different tools and you use training as a tool to do that.
Yeah.
Whatever but it has to be specific to the client.
Yeah.
And
It should
that's where
be.
I would yeah, absolutely. Unless you're doing a group thing, then it's specific to the topic and the people have signed up for that. But anyway, different topic.
Different rant.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
that's where, kind of going back to our original thing, I think part of the fear comes back to imposter syndrome,
Yeah, that's a
right?
big
Like I
term.
used to always say, fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
And I had an employee who actually used that against me um, because I had to terminate him because the
You
government
faked it.
client terminated him.
Oh no.
He goes, we don't want him back in the building.
Oh,
So I'm like, well, that you're on that contract. Your employment agreement says you're on that contract. You don't have a job.
yeah.
So we terminated him, and he sued me, of course. And they always do,
Yeah.
always.
Yeah.
That should be a whole episode.
Yeah,
Uh,
we're gonna schedule that because I mean it's a pitfall and it's like the cost of doing business. It's just you're
yeah,
open to that. Just being open
but
for business.
because I said fake it till you make it, which
Really?
of course I thought everyone in the world knew that statement.
Hey,
I mean, I
different
thought
generations mean different interpretations.
right. And he's like, Libby told me to lie to you. Blah blah blah. I go, I did not.
That's a strong word.
Right. I mean, this was crazy. I mean, it's one of those things where you think, am I in the twilight zone?
Yeah.
Because how could someone, especially, when you say it with a little bit of swagger, you say it
Yeah.
with a little bit of fun to it,
Yeah.
clearly.
Have some confidence. Like you have to be very literal and then be able to sign and write it out. Like if it's
Yeah.
because like you said, people's interpretation of colloquial terms in business, they go all over the place, so that it's scary because somebody can really take it pretty far, fake it till you make it, and then once they're over there, they're just over there. There's no, oh, well, I thought you meant, no, not at all.
Well, here's the whole thing. Like, if as a small business, right?
Mhm.
So right now, like, let's say you have 5 employees,
Mhm.
right? Well, you want to bid on $1 million, $2 million contract,
Mhm.
but you've got all these subs, and you kind of want to look a little larger and more stable than you
Yeah.
are. Well, you walk with a little more swagger. Your website is showing all your great projects and different people. Your
Mhm.
CAPE statement has, all these referrals. So you
Mhm.
look bigger than what you truly are.
Yeah.
But you're not lying about who you are. You're building muscles around who you
Yeah.
are.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the confidence that you build as a small business, and also part of your marketing strategy.
Mhm.
What niche do you want to serve?
Yeah.
As a consultant, I always wanted to compete with the biggest firms. I
Mm.
wanted to provide equal services to the biggest name consulting firms out there. And
Mhm.
I did.
Mm.
And we beat them.
All right.
Yeah. And I worked with them. So they appreciated the same, because it was quality, process, insight, and customer service that really set us apart. And that's where you start innovating in
Yeah.
your field,
Yeah.
you know, but you have to make that decision. I know other consultants who just wanted to be a paper mill, crank out the report,
Mm.
have bodies on site just pushing papers from pile A to pile B. I
Mhm.
never wanted that. Pile
Yeah.
A to pile B makes me insane.
Yeah.
And people who can do that all day make me insane. I'm not good with that, because there's no creativity, there's no
No.
energy,
Mhm. Effort.
there's no forward movement in that. You're just collecting a paycheck.
Yeah. And I feel like you can do that in every industry. You can be the person that's just the middle person. And I feel like in COVID, that middle person got evaporated very quickly
Oh,
because the information is more available online now. The access to the actual buyers or the clients has dramatically changed, and we would always run into that, and we still do. People reach out and say, hey, I see you do X amount of abatement projects, demolition projects, I can connect you to clients. I don't like those kind of services because you are just in the middle of me getting my money, like, period, point blank. There has not been one that I've heard of that make it make sense. You're standing there, you have all the leads. Okay, leads are different. Leads aren't guaranteed, but literally, I go out and get projects and I just connect you when I have something. That's different. But the person that says, oh, I'm working on getting leads, and I can be this person and connect you, and it's like, why would I need that? Because I'm doing the same thing you're doing, essentially. And you're not doing it at a high enough level to where your leads are coming through, where they're
right.
signing on, where they actually have the contract. You're bidding just like I'm bidding. So why would I pay somebody to do that for me? And maybe there's a size difference. Certain corporations get certain size. Like, I know there's things like Salesforce and different things, but I also feel like there's specific industries who have target markets directly for Salesforce. Like, if you're in real estate, or if you're in the business of just, you need to call people daily, not necessarily sell them, but you need numbers to call and people to contact. Yeah, so you use a service that can get you even more numbers to call. But I'm in the service industry where I need people to not just talk to me. I need to work on your property, because it has to be in that kind of transactional lane, because I provide a service. So that goes into like our last next to last question. Who is your target? Why are what's how is that holding you back from taking action on your idea?
Well, if you're not clear who's going to buy your product or service, you don't know who to reach out to.
Yeah.
So, is it something that evolved because you saw a need in your existing customers, so you can go right back to them with
Mhm.
this new idea and see if they'll buy it?
Mhm.
Or is it something that is kind of a spin off of what you're providing already to your existing customers, and it might open up a new group of people to go and reach out to. But
Yeah.
you have to be clear as to who is your target, what is your pricing, how are you portraying your new idea,
Mm.
because you have to find a buyer or you don't have anything. You
Yeah.
still have an idea.
Yeah. Especially if it's not
And
solving a problem or solving a need.
right. Yeah, it has to solve a need. Without a need, there's no buyer.
Yeah.
Just nice to have.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'll go back on something. I actually have an appointment setter that I hired.
Okay.
And her sole job is to find me contacts. Her
Mm.
sole job is to start sending out inquiries on LinkedIn
Hmm.
so that I can have that phone call. I hired her for a force multiplier
Mm.
because I can't sit at a computer all day prospecting
No.
leads.
Yeah.
And unless I go to an event and network, I have no other way to meet people.
Yeah.
So this is a direct, it's an action that can be taken in addition to my actions.
Yeah.
But that's a different type of service.
Hmm.
I just need someone to get on the phone, to set something up to have a phone call with someone.
Mm. And that makes a
So
lot of sense.
yeah, so different industries require different kinds of outreach. But again, I know who my ideal customer is.
Yes. And
You know,
that is the point of the targeting, because you have to know who your end user is, but you also have to know how do you best serve that person. And I like what you said about going back into your client base and say, okay, is this an additional service that they could use? Is this an additional service they're looking for? Because that's how we started our second company. So our first company would go into people's homes and take out, asbestos tile and boilers and things like that. And if they had like a fully molded basement, we'd have to remove those joists and cut their drywall up. And we'd be done. And they'd sit there and go, can you put it back? I'm like, well, not with this crew. I need a different crew because I'm paying, my abaters a certain amount, and they have to make a certain amount by law. And then the renovators, it's a whole different, kind of strategy there. So we
yeah,
started our second company to service that client continuously and say, okay, instead of calling some renovator and say, hey, just take this project off my hands, we keep it in house and say, okay, we have renovators that are mobilized right after, that abatement. So serving that client and finding better ways and more ways that they're looking for your service, or if it's not even like a heavy lift, like if they just need trash hauled out. Are you
yeah,
already on the site? Yeah, we can take that out for you. Okay, that's an additional cost, but everybody's happy in the end because now I got this new basement and we hauled some trash off your site. We took out the environmental issues, and just being able to go through your clients, let your clients help you answer those questions that you might have. What other services could I be offering?
and that is one of the big things that we really need to emphasize. The easiest person to sell to is an existing client. You've already proven yourself. You've
Yeah,
done the hard work.
yeah,
So doing add-on work for an existing customer
mhm,
is always number one.
yeah. And what's the ratio? You get 80% of your business from, is it your return clients, or I just butchered
I
it.
don't know. That one I don't know. We'll
I'll
make one
Google
up. No one will
it.
know.
But the expression is, you should have the bulk of your business come from your returning clients. You shouldn't have the bulk of your business always be a new client. And I remember watching Shark Tank, and that was one of their conversations. They're always asking, what's your return on investment, or what's your customer acquisition cost? And I wish
Yeah,
somebody told me about that like in 2014, because I remember we had just signed up for one of those uh, bid sites that market your company to other companies looking for subcontractors. And before you have the experience, you're like, that sounds good, it makes sense. And we were inundated with bids, and we just didn't have the process to go through so many bids. And then the touch points, we didn't have any system for, hey, making the connection before we send you a number out of nowhere,
yeah,
and we just signed up for the service, and we're paying them monthly, but the return on investment was nil, because you can't just give people numbers. You have to, hey, this is who we are, this is our capability. You got to have some sort of conversation, because otherwise that
right.
is just a random number. So keeping that in mind when people cold call you for services, oh, this is what your industry uses. I always ask them, as many questions as I can. They probably, get sick of me after an hour because I'm like, look, I'm gonna get a return on this phone call. You have
Right.
to tell me, do you service abatement companies or renovation companies? Um, do you have any local clients that I can look up, or, talk to with the information, Security and Privacy Act? You really can't get people's phone numbers, but I always just drill down on salespeople because they talk a good game. But if they can't help me understand how much they know about my industry or my service or my particular needs, I can't just, give them my service. I feel like every time I get on the phone call, I got to write down their sales questions. I'm like, yeah, I should be hitting my customers, like this and this aggressively because that's what it takes. You don't just get projects out of nowhere. You really have to chase them down.
Right. And that's really something that when you start getting comfortable with the range of things that you can do,
Mm-hmm.
it opens up the new doors to you, and then you're very comfortable chasing it down because you
Yeah.
can think on your feet
Yep.
and really understand, I provide this service, I just don't call it this.
Yeah.
Or I'm already doing 90% of this. All I have to add is this and call it another name, and I've met the requirements.
Yes. Yes,
And it's
exactly.
never that heavy of a lift. If you're truly a student of your profession,
Mhm.
it's never that heavy of a lift because you either know someone to bring in
Mhm.
or you've already done it in some form already. It's
Exactly.
You can get from A to B pretty quickly.
Yeah, and that's the one thing I would tell anybody starting off their entrepreneurship journey is really know your craft. Maybe start off offering, one service really well. And as that client, gets to know you and can depend on you, then you say, hey, we could also do that over there. Do you have somebody to do that? And they're already confident in you. So, like you said, it's not as heavy as a lift. But I think that brings us to our last question. There's no reason not to take the risk if everything is in place. So if you know your service, if you know your client's needs, if you know you're the best person to do it, or you have the facilities to mobilize other crews, there's no reason to take the risk. But let's dive into the word risk. Is it a risk to take on, new ideas? What would be the
It's
risk that
always a
keeps you
risk.
stop?
Yeah. Well, it's always a risk, right? Anything unknown is a risk.
Yeah.
But what level of risk?
Mm,
Is it a little tiny risk, maybe a 5% risk?
mhm.
Or is it astronomical? Is it like 99% unknown? So that's right, because it can
Yeah,
go the
I have
whole
no clue
range.
about this.
Yeah. No, so it can go the whole range. That's why you prepare yourself. That's why you really start doing your market research and think it through. Know that you have the systems in place and the infrastructure in place to be able to deliver,
Mhm.
and then know who you're selling to and what the requirements are and what success looks like.
Yeah.
And if you have all that, you've mitigated a lot of the risks. So now it's just in your head.
Yeah.
And that goes back to take action or don't take action. What is that? Is that Yoda or Jedi? Who is that? Yoda?
Yoda.
And I'm not a Star Wars person or Star.
I'm joking. My husband, he's a huge Star Wars person, and we actually got married on May 4th. Like, that's a
Oh,
really
how
big
funny.
Star Wars
Okay.
day. And I didn't know it until I shared it at work. I was like, yeah, I'm getting married on May 4th. It's like, oh, you like Star Wars? I was like, what?
We always, everyone sends it out. May the fourth be with you, and then
You.
Pi Day, March 14th. Pi Day is another big holiday
Oh,
for
yeah,
someone.
yeah, yeah.
That's fun. Anyway, so I think Yoda said, uh, "Do it or don't do it. There is no trying."
Oh, that's a good quote. He did. Yeah,
Yeah, so I think that's what it is.
it
I,
is. I'm
I
a,
thought I made that up, and I'll take credit for it. So,
we'll trademark it. But it's
anyway,
true. And I think it's important to note for all the entrepreneurs and aspiring business owners out there, there's different kinds of risks. And depending on who you talk to, you're going to get risk from their perspective. And I only say that because I remember as somebody that's been in this field for many years, the environmental hazardous waste field, I've been trained. I have my workers trained. Like the training is fresh on my mind, the do's, the don'ts, all of it, what the industry entails, and also the risks associated with it. And I'm not going to say extremely comfortable, but I'm very confident in where we're at risk wise in the industry. But if you're talking to the bank, if you're talking to insurance, they have different levels of risk. And I remember we were renewing our insurance and it was eye-opening to find out that not a lot of insurance companies cover hazardous waste industries. You know,
Mm,
like there's like one big provider on the East Coast, basically. And there's brokers that'll, you'll sign up through this, agency, but the underwriter is this one big insurance company. And I remember when I learned that, I was like, huh, that's interesting. Like there's so many different insurance companies out there. And, for other services, it's very easy and quick to get, insurances. Or if you're talking to the bank and you're like, oh, I'm in this industry, every industry has their own risk tolerance for what you do. So I think that's one of the things I didn't know starting my business. I thought, oh, I can just, get this insurance and then, talk to this bank. And they're like, oh, we don't work with businesses in your field. And you're like, oh, what? You kind of, you're taken aback. But then as you go along, you realize everybody's risk tolerance and risk profiles are different. Just being in construction, period, like if you do anything that has something to do with scaffolding or going off the ground, oh, the risk completely changes, and the
sure.
underwriters, they're like, well, how many years have you been doing it? Who do you work with? And there are companies out here who have great marketing, they have great outward facing things. And, you get the hush hush from subcontractors like, don't ever work with this company. You're like, why? And they'll give you the story and all the tea. And you're like, I don't know. It's like, well, yeah, because, it's people don't talk about it. Well, people should talk about it, but it's interesting because there are some industries where, like you said, you can travel the country and just take a laptop. And then there's other industries where you have to have substantial amounts of coverage and risk and, deal with certain kind of policies and things like that because of the type of things that are involved in your industry that are just commonplace to you, but to others, it's like, I would say, I think a surprising industry that has a lot of risk or people don't touch is restaurants.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, restaurants. And I was like, oh yeah, and getting a liquor license, that's a whole nother can of worms. And then you start to think about it, you're like, yeah, because you have to have competent bartenders that go, okay, he's had enough, she's had enough. Okay, get the keys or call the cab. Like you have to be responsible, for that kind of understanding of your clients. And in bartending school, I didn't go to bartending school, but I have friends that went and they're like, yeah, it's a real thing. You really have to be aware. And you go to a party and you're going to have fun and the staff are like working, they're analyzing people, they're trying to
Right.
watch out for things. And there's so many people that you encounter from night to night, and it could be a whole different crowd. And so when I heard that, there's a lot of risk involved in bars and restaurants, and, restaurants are hard anyway. Like, as we've seen from the pandemic, restaurants are, a lot of overhead and it's perishable. So you're constantly, turning that over and you're a restaurant. So you have to get more every day, whether you have it or not. Like, yeah, restaurants is up there as far as, level
Yeah.
of
High
intensity.
failure rates.
Yeah, definitely.
Anyway, back to our topic.
I really went on that one.
Well, so I mean, what we want people to take away from this is really think through. If you have an idea, you're an entrepreneur, it came to you for a reason,
Hmm.
and you can put all of your thinking toward it and really structure it and take the idea and put it into action and make
Hmm.
sure that you have the resources in place to make it successful. But it's really it all starts up in your head.
Yeah.
Yeah, move it from the head into action.
Yep. And if you aren't the type that can execute, you have to find somebody that is, because businesses prime reason for existing is to generate income, so if it's a coach, if it's a new hire, you have to quickly, I would say, analyze that part of yourself. Are you the person to execute? You might be the idea person, and that's fine. There are tons of businesses who have CEOs that are, the creative, or the idea person, or the spokesperson or the front person. But you have to build a team that has some of those components in it. Like, you can't, maybe you can, maybe there are people out here that have been doing it by themselves and just, but I realistically, it just, you gotta delegate, you gotta break it up in there, because
And it depends on your business.
yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it's all business dependent.
It is. I believe it.
Okay.
All right, guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning in, Libby. It's always good to see you and hear you, especially on this episode. We're doing voice only, but thank you so much. And thanks for watching, everyone. And like I said, reach out if you want to be a guest on the show. And tune in to our next episode where we're going to do a live on YouTube discussing, small business lessons to be learned from the movie The Founder, McDonald's origin story. So I just want to say thank you to Libby and thank you to our audience, and we'll see you later. Bye, Libby.
Goodbye, everyone. Bye.
Bye.